Hi friends! So, today I want to talk about the last bruiser to wrap up the whole bruiser meta that we are in. So I've talked about Tiamat, I've talked about Rahu, I guess you can tell who I'm going to be talking about next. That will be Holden. Okay? So, let's take a look at Holden in the archives because he is max skilled in there. Let's take a look at Holden here. Where is he? Here he is. So, Holden. Let's take a look at his S3 first, okay? His S3 is a 2-hit that deals 180% of his defense to all enemies, with each attack has a 50% chance to dispel one buff, and apply attack down and rest down for 2 turns. And this chance is doubled when he crits. That means he needs to crit to do a 100% chance to dispel a buff, and to put attack down and rest down. Cool. What about his S2? His S2 is a single target attack, right? There's 480% of his defense to a single enemy, and there's a 100% chance to push back the target's turn meter by 100 and maximize their skill cooldowns. So basically his S2 is most of the time his leading sequence, because if he takes a turn, he is resetting one dude on the field completely, alright? He basically says, start again. Okay, and that can be very, very detrimental to your opponent, especially when you hit their key unit, like their DPS. What about his S1? His S1 is just a simple 3-hit attack that does 110% of his defense and has a 20% chance to apply defense down. So it's basically a 60% chance, right? And he has a passive here, which is called execution mode, and this is what makes Holden Holden. Okay. When entering battle, for every 500 defense, increase the counter attack rate by 10% and the damage result by 5%. Okay, so for every 500 defense you put on this unit, he gets 10% counter attack rate and an extra 5% damage increase, basically. Okay, so now that we understand his kit, let's take a look at what Holden's skill tree looks like. Alright. So we'll go into Holden right here, and let's take a look at his prowesses. So let's take a look at the S1. Alright, the S1, we can see that the speed is in here, and now we can actually take a look. Why is it in here though? It's because if you look at his skill up when you tofu him, at level 5, this is where you get the 10% execution mode. Alright, you finally unlock everything. Before this, it will be a 7.5% and a 3% damage result increase. Okay, so they want you to max his skill 1 first, because if you can max his skill 1, you're gonna get this execution mode maxed out, which is very, very important for him. Okay, so you can see that I have done that myself. What about his skill 2 now? His skill 2 is also pretty damn important, and the most important reason is because he's a defense scaling unit, as we have read through his entire skill kit. And you can see that we have, a 15% extra defense here, and we all know that skill 2 is usually all about defense. So the more defense you can stack on him, the more counter attack rate he can proc, and the more times he proc, the more chance you are fucked. Okay? Now, when you go to his level 5 here, this is when he gets a 100% chance. Alright? You want the 100% chance because chances are you're not really building effect accuracy on this dude. Alright? You're putting a little bit. And so if you're going to be putting just a little bit of effect accuracy onto him, you want this 100%. If not, there is going to be times when, he fails to push back or he fails to skill cooldown and it feels hella bad. Alright? Then Holden just didn't do his job at that point. But this is the main reason why you want to also prioritize his skill 2. Okay, as you can see, I prioritize that. His skill 3, however, now this is important, okay? His skill 3 is basically when you skill it up, it gets his apply chance to 50%, which is nice, okay? But the most important thing is not because of the reduced skill cooldown here. It's nice, but chances are the second you already hit the S3 and the S2, chances are your opponent is already kind of screwed, right? But the important reason here why I would say the next thing, this is the last thing that you skill up, is because he has 12% crit rate in here, and we know what his skill 3 does. He needs to crit to double the chance of, dispelling and putting attack down and rest down, and that's quite important, okay? So now he has a 35% chance on 2 hits. If I crit, then that's a 70% chance twice, okay? You want this to be 100% chance. So this is what I'll be working on next to get it to, level 4 first, and then level 5 later on when I have the spare tofus, okay? You want this 12 crit rate. This helps you with your gearing a lot better. That is what Holden does, okay? So, now that we understand his entire skill tree, let's talk about what modules to put on him, alright? Now, we all know that Holden is a defense scaling unit, so naturally you'd want to build him on Unbreakable first, alright? I don't have to explain that part, but you can see that my Holden here is an endgame Holden, alright? Why is it an endgame Holden? It's because I'm running a 12-8-6 setup. 12-piece Bloodbath, because it gives you, damage reduction, which is very important for him. The longer he stays alive, the more chances he has to proc his defense, his S1, okay? I run Strive on him, because people are going to try and get rid of Holden as soon as possible, alright? You don't have to run Bramble on him, because to me, Bramble, I've tried Bramble as well, and that's just an overkill. But him turn cycling a lot faster is more dangerous than a Bramble proc, because he already has inbuilt counter attack. Okay? Now, your 6 piece, which is going to be your specialized core, but if you can actually, farm Inferno, it's either going to be Ether Plague or it's going to be Colossal Guard. I chose to go with Ether Plague because this is where I am getting my effect accuracy from. A little bit of effect accuracy cannot hurt you because of what Holden does. He puts defense down, he turned me to pushback, he maximizes your skill cooldowns, he attacks down, he rests down, he dispels, he does a lot of shit with this effect accuracy. So there's no harm in building him Ether Plague. Giving him a bit more HP also helps him. Okay? You can't just full stack defense and hope that he does his thing, because you have to remember that there are units out there that do defense down, which is his worst debuff ever. If he gets defense down, he is, hitting like a wet noodle, and he's going to die relatively quickly if you don't have HP. Okay? That's why I chose to go with Ether Plague, and this has saved me a couple of times in RTA when people put death down on him and they try to, nuke him. My Strive plus the Ether Plague really helped me get over that threshold. Alright? So this is how I have built my Holden. What about his shell? His shell, I think there are only 2 ways to build him. Again, Artisan is the easiest answer to getting more defense. Alright? So with his passive 1, which is a lot of people were actually talking about, I should talk about his passive. You want to run Crystal Wall on his passive 1, because Crystal Wall on passive 1 here gives you at max 30% extra defense, which is where you're going to be getting your defense from. And I'll be talking about thresholds that you need to hit with his stat line later on. So your first passive, you want to roll for Crystal Wall. You can see that I'm still trying to roll this, but I have too many things I want to roll and I'm a bit too scattered, so I need to buckle down and really focus on, units at a time. But this is what I want at the moment. You can see I only have a 16% defense percentage Crystal Wall, which will eventually, I'm hoping it will go up to the high 20s to the 30, right, which is the red one. If you don't have enough crit for your passive 2, go for the crit, okay? Go for the crit in the passive 2, which is called Penetration, alright? You want to try to get the red one. 15 to 18% is pretty damn good on him. You want to get that first and then eventually roll off it into Shadow Dash, because it gives him more speed. That means he gets to move more turns. Why did I say start with the crit first? Because if you don't have enough crit and you press your S3 and you don't strip, you don't put attack down, then you've wasted it, right? And if you are, your modules don't allow you to have a lot of crit, this is how you're going to get it. But eventually you're going to come down to your prowesses and you're going to get the 12 extra crit here. And hopefully you will have enough crit. And I suggest about anywhere between, 85% crit rate is good for him. Then we can talk about moving it to speed. As you can see, right, I currently have 75%, okay? 75% is still not great. I know that I'm going to be getting this 12 crit. That's why I'm willing to gamble this. Okay? So by the time I get this 12 crit here, my 75 will become, 87 crit. I can live with that. Okay? So now that we understand this, his third passive can really be can be whatever you want. Alright? You can either get Assault if you want to do more damage. You can get Dauntless if you want to take less damage. Or you can go with Insight, which gives you effect accuracy and effect resistance at the start of the battle. Alright? You can see that my one gives me 52% extra effect accuracy and effect resistance, so my S2 will always land, and I like that on him, so I'm leaving it at that. But it's up to your interpretation. What you want to go with, you decide. Okay? Now, for his thresholds, as you can see, I have him at 3.4k defense. What you want is you need to think about his defense in 500 blocks. Okay? Ideally, you want to get him to about 3,500 for his defense, because that means you get a 70% chance to proc counter attack. 70%, pretty damn high. Getting any more than that, I think you're going to be sacrificing stats somewhere else, either through HP, through crit rate, through crit damage, through speed. One of that is getting, sacrificed to put him above that threshold, and the next threshold is 4,000. That is too damn hard for you to get anyway. Okay? I would say 3,500 is the best sweet spot for his defense, so try to get him there as close as possible. You can see I'm pretty close, and the only reason I'm not there is because I have a crystal ball that I need to, reroll. But eventually I'm gonna get there. So right now, I'm not getting the full 70%, so I'm again gambling on this. But I know that in the future I'm going to hit that, so I'm leaving it at this. But now you know how I think about the Holden's threshold. With his speed, anywhere between 210 speed is good. Okay, so try to get that. Eventually I'm going to get that, you can see, because I still have room to grow here, right? I have 7 more speed, ideally. Okay, so 7 more speed on him gets him to about 215, which is okay. I'm happy with that because I have Strive to keep pushing him forward. So every time he gets touched, he gets 10% push, right? If you don't know what Strive does, this is what Strive does. Right, after being attacked, advances turn meter by 10%. Good to know that Strive is also a defense set, so you get 10% defense from here. Okay, that is how I would build Holden. Now, how do you play Holden in RTA? Okay, playing him in RTA. At the end, I'm gonna be leaving a couple of videos of me using him in RTA. Basically, you want to draft him in a bruiser draft. Okay, if you draft him in a bruiser draft, the chances are you want to draft him with Tiamat ideally, because Tiamat is how you answer Holdens, because he's very weak into opposite elements as per usual. But that doesn't mean he can't fight a Tiamat. He can, okay? But Tiamat actually doesn't give a fuck about what he does. All right? Maybe the defense down is the only thing that hurts her, but besides that, she doesn't really care about her turn meter, her turn meter cooldowns or whatever. She's gonna counter attack. She's gonna turn to dragon form, and she only has 1 skill in dragon form, right? Putting defense down on her, attack down on her, or rest down on her doesn't really matter because she's a HP scaling unit. So Holden really don't do much to a Tiamat, okay? But Tiamat does a lot to a Holden. That's why she is the answer. So ideally, you want to pick a Holden and Tiamat together. That way, you protect yourself from the other bruiser, which is Rahu. Now, people are going to pick Rahu into you if you pick a Tiamat. That's why you have Holden to answer the Rahu, so it makes them feel like, I don't really want to pick that unit. Okay? Playing him on Bloodbath means that you can answer Rev Cleave as well. Okay? Rev Cleaving is very, very fragile. If they get touched or softened in any way, shape, or form, you are just going to clean up with the rest of your units. Okay? Especially if you're playing an Ambertia. The first hit on any unit from the Rev Cleaver, if Holden procs and Tiamat procs, or any of your counterattack unit procs, that unit is just pretty much dead. Let's be real here. Okay? So a lot of people will draft Holden into, a Rev Cleave, or if they're playing a Bruiser draft, they will be taking this as one of your damage dealers. That's what he's there for. Okay? That is how I would be drafting Holden. and how I would be applying him. If you see units that have, massive cooldowns, or units that, rely on their skills to do something, okay? For example, Messiah. Messiah needs to S3, S2 to constantly keep up that invincibility. But if he S3s, all your units survive, and you S2 him, now he's only left with S1. His invincibility is going to drop, and then you can just kill him off, right? That's how you would be wanting to play him, okay? You can use this to answer like Kazuyo's and stuff, when you can see Kazuyo's, is coming back to her S3, reset her. Now she, is just another single target sleep unit, and which you can easily deal with your 3 other teammates, okay? That's how I will be playing Holden. At the end of the video, I will leave, a couple of fights, and you can take a look at that. But that's it, guys. That's how I will be building Holden. That's how I've built my Holden. That's how I think about Holden. But that's it. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.